Show's running now through March 22nd. Tickets at oslorep.org.
You've probably heard of food deserts. They're neighborhoods where it's hard to find healthy food, but what if there was a way to create oases in the food desert? I'm Matthew Petty, and coming up on Florida Matters, live and local, we'll meet a store owner who's stocking fruit, veggies, proteins, and other healthy foods on his shelves in a Tampa Bay area food desert. And a bit later in the program, what makes Tampa Bay a good place to set down roots, start a business, get an education, or advance your career? And what are the drawbacks? What gives us an edge? What holds us back here in Tampa Bay? Is it the cost of housing, transportation, access to education? Call and join the conversation, 813-755-6562, or email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Also this hour, how to make baby formula for sea urchins. And from prisoner to podcaster, we'll meet a man who turned his life around and is giving back after serving time. All this and your calls and emails after these headlines.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. In about 9 hours, President Trump is scheduled to deliver a constitutionally mandated annual speech to a joint session of Congress, the State of the Union. It is an opportunity for the President of the United States to set the national agenda or perhaps reset it. A new NPR PBS News Marist poll suggests a majority of Americans believe the country's doing worse under Trump's watch. The president sees it differently, and he's expected to try to make that point on matters of the economy, military action overseas, and military deployments at home, among other actions. NPR's Frank Ordonez spoke with a pollster about all of it.
But I did speak with Ashley Koenig, a pollster from Rutgers University, who told me that the administration faces an uphill battle.
There is so much on the table right now with the president going into the speech between whether we're talking about the partial shutdown, the economy, immigration, or Iran, and then clearly him seeing his worst poll numbers right now during his second term.
NPR's Frank Ordonez reporting. U.S. customs agents are now collecting new global tariffs of 10%, not the 15% tariffs the president had announced plans for over the weekend. Farmers in the Northwest are scrambling to make sense of the tariffs just ahead of planting and harvesting some of spring's first crops. Northwest Public Broadcasting's Anna King has more.
In this field north of Pasco, Washington, are recently mown down asparagus ferns. The ground will be tilled up soon, readied for spring. Tariffs could really shift the domestic asparagus market.
It has the potential to help the domestic industry in the short term, but it is disruptive to the marketplace.
That's Alan Schreiber, who heads up the Washington Asparagus Commission. He says farmers might not have to ship crops far away if they're not competing with Peru and Mexico. But it's still not yet clear if the tariffs will stick. For NPR News, I'm Anna King.
A new U.S. military task force is working to dismantle Mexican drug cartels. More from NPR's Quill Lawrence.
The Mexican military carried out the raid that killed Nemesio Ceguera Cervantes, known as El Mencho, who led the violent Jalisco New Generation cartel. But a new U.S. multi-agency group shared key intelligence from satellites and intercepted conversations to make the raid possible, according to a U.S. official who is not authorized to speak publicly. Scores of people died across Mexico in the violence that followed the raid. Mexican officials fear a bloody power struggle to replace El Mencho and take over lucrative networks that smuggle drugs across the U.S. border. But again, the U.S. task force is gathering intelligence and sharing it with Mexican forces as cartel operatives discuss succession. Quill Lawrence, NPR News.
It's NPR.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the estate of Joan B. Kroc, whose bequest serves as an enduring investment in the future of public radio and seeks to help NPR be the model for high-quality journalism in the 21st century. This is NPR.
You're listening to WUSF 89.7. I'm Craig Kopp. New pedestrian safety measures are being rolled out in Ybor City. WUSF's Ricardo Cuomo explains what's changing and why.
Tampa officials are enacting the changes in response to the November police chase and crash that killed 4 people on 7th Avenue. These include narrowing the streets, lowering the speed limit, additional 4-way stops, and increased police presence in the area. Transportation Services Director Adam Purcell tells City Council members the goal is to get drivers to slow down.
What we hope that as the traffic approaches the more active segment of 7th Avenue and Ybor, that traffic is slowed because of that physical impediment of the narrowing of lanes.
Officials say other measures are still being considered. The city is also in the middle of a re-bricking project on 7th Avenue, which should also help reduce speeds on the road. Ricardo Cuomo, WUSF 89.7 News.
You can find a list of the changes at WUSF.org. Regional inflation cooled off in January, showing the lowest annual price growth in almost a year. Consumer prices were up 1.9% last month compared to a year earlier. WLRN's Tom Hudson says that is below the national inflation rate of 2.4% recorded in January.
The slower regional inflation was helped by a drop in gasoline prices over the past year, while food prices continue to rise at an increased rate. That's thanks to meat and non-alcoholic drinks especially. Now, restaurant prices also continue to trend higher, and electricity costs have been rising faster than overall inflation.
The most recent data for Florida is for Tampa, where inflation was 2.3% in January. Earlier this morning, Governor Ron DeSantis and the Florida cabinet moved to provide 22 acres of land to Hillsborough College to be used for a Tampa Bay Rays stadium. We'll have more later on this story throughout the afternoon. I'm Craig Kopp, WUSF 89.7 News.
You can trust WUSF to keep you up to date with the Tampa Bay Rays stadium news. And WUSF.org is also a great place for spring training info. Get the guide to Florida's Grapefruit League, complete with schedules and ticket information at WUSF.org.
The Raymond James Gasparilla Festival of the Arts is back. Enjoy the work of 250 artists, children's activities, and live entertainment at Tampa's Julian B. Lane Riverfront Park. February 28th and March 1st, visit GasparillaArts.org.
This is Florida Matters Live and Local, sponsored by Badawi Law, and we're broadcasting from the Doctors Lorraine Rubis and Neil Frankel studio at WSF in Tampa. I'm Matthew Petty. Now, you've probably heard of food deserts. They're neighborhoods where grocery stores are few and far between. We've talked about them before on this program. A couple of years ago, the city of St. Petersburg partnered with the St. Pete Free Clinic on a program to give people living in South St. Pete better access to healthy food, fresh fruit, vegetables, meat, proteins, and whole grains. And we're joined now by Mike Jabber. He is Rajax Food and Meat Mart owner. Mike, thank you so much for stopping by.
It's my pleasure.
And also with us is Jennifer Yeagley, CEO of the St. Pete Free Clinic. Jennifer, thank you for coming back.
Thank you.
We want to hear from you too. Maybe you have trouble yourself accessing fresh and healthy foods where you live. What are your tips for surviving a food desert? Or if you've got questions about all of this, give us a call, 813-755-6562. You can also email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. And a bit later in the program, we are going to be talking about another quality of life issue, housing affordability, especially how it affects people in Tampa Bay and Tampa Bay's competitiveness. So if you want to weigh in on that, stick around for the conversation in about 25 minutes. Jennifer, let me start with you. The program to get more fresh and healthy foods into stores in food deserts is called Fresh Pace Healthy Neighborhood Store Program. What is it and how does it work?
Yeah, so our Fresh Pace Healthy Neighborhood Stores program is in partnership with the city of St. Pete and was implemented in response to the pandemic and the rising food insecurity and nutrition inequity that we saw across communities that the pandemic really highlighted. So the city envisioned a program where they could partner with a provider like the Free Clinic to identify existing neighborhood stores and really leverage existing neighborhood infrastructure, but to support those stores in being able to drive down the cost and stock healthier food. So healthier food at a lower cost, because Mike can, speak to this better than I, but some of the challenges of small businesses and small stores is that the cost of procuring healthy food, it's so expensive. And so then, the store owners have to mark those prices up to make their profit. And then folks don't have as ready access to inexpensive quality nutrient-dense food as you might get at a Publix or a big box grocery store, which we know the neighborhoods in which the Fresh Pace program operates don't have access to the Publix or the larger stores. And so this really works with the existing infrastructure of the neighborhood.
And it's been going for 3 years now?
That's right. So we will be starting our 4th year this spring.
Is it how's it funded? Is it just through the city, or is it? self-sustaining? How does it work?
So initial funding came through the American Rescue Plan Act federal funds that flowed through the city of St. Petersburg. So those ARPA dollars came to St. Pete specifically for this program. And then we were so grateful that even after those ARPA dollars sunsetted, that the city of St. Pete continued to commit to funding the program and sustaining it. You know, they knew how successful it had become and what an impact it was having on the community. And so we will now be in our second year of hopefully securing ongoing funds through the city of St. Petersburg.
Okay. So, Mike, how does it work for you? So Jennifer was talking about, the cost of buying some of the stuff that the big box stores or the chains they have a price advantage, right? Because they can negotiate, better deals. So does the city subsidize some of what you would normally be buying through like a wholesaler or something?
Yes, they subsidize some because they give us a little grant. And with that grant, we're able to purchase bigger bulk of fresh fruits and vegetables instead of just getting like little bags from here and there. And that would save us a lot of money in the process, so we're able to pass on the savings to the customers.
Yeah. So what is your most popular thing that you sell through this program? Like what would be on your shelves now that you weren't selling 3 years ago?
Most of the stuff that we have now that we didn't have is like more fresh fruits and vegetables. We have a meat department at the store where we're at. So we had some, just the basic vegetables like your potatoes, like your onions, your like just regular green bell peppers. What this program was able to do for us is bring us a variety of vegetables and fruits that now we have anything that a customer could ask for, all the color peppers, all the green vegetables, all the broccolis, mushrooms, corn on the cob, fresh that we didn't have. I mean, varieties that I would never thought of that we were able to sell and have now. You know?
Is it popular with customers? Or what do they like to buy?
Yes, customers love it. They can't believe when they come into like a small grocery store that they're able to find all the stuff that we have now that, we never had before. They're amazed that they can come in and find like ginger roots or, green onions or, just it's amazing what they can find now, that we never had before,
Yeah. If you're just joining us, we're talking with Mike Jabber. He is Rajax Food and Meat Mart owner. Also with us, Jennifer Yeagley, CEO of the St. Pete Free Clinic, talking about the Fresh Pace Healthy Neighborhood Store program in St. Petersburg. It aims to give people better access to fresh and healthy food. And if you've shopped at one of the stores offering produce and other fresh food through this program, give us a call. Let us know what difference it's made to you. The number is 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also just tell us about your experience of living in a food desert. If that's where you happen to find yourself, how do you get by? The number is 813-755-6562. You can also email FloridaMatters at WUSF.org. Jennifer, it can be a long and pretty costly process to just stand up a traditional grocery store. Like we talked a while back to a group of people who are part of a co-op and they're working to make a brick and mortar store. It's kind of a process to get through in South St. Pete. So is this a program, a way to sort of jumpstart the greening of the food desert, if you want to call it that?
It is part of a continuum of solutions to address food insecurity. So, at the Free Clinic, many folks know that part of our work is food banking, front-facing food pantry, where we provide, on the food bank side, 21 million plus pounds of food per year at no cost through a partner network up and down Pinellas County, and then through our front-facing food pantries, serve clients directly with no-cost nutritious food, which is one key piece in addressing food security, but so is the Healthy Neighborhood Stores program, working with existing stores. So is the vision for the One Community Co-op, which situates a grocery store, community-owned grocery store in the neighborhood. So is urban agriculture, and all kinds of local community-based solutions. It takes all of those to truly address food security and make sure communities have access to the nutrition they need.
Mike, has it sort of changed the way you think about what you do at your store? Like, 3-4 years ago, could you have envisaged what you sell now and kind of being a more fully fledged grocery store?
It really has changed the way we do business, to be honest with you. I mean, right now, it's it's amazing how people come in and, they're able to access healthy choices, healthy foods. And not just, the vegetables and the fruit part too. Now we also were focused on like healthier snacks, healthier drinks, healthier, protein shakes, We're just trying to educate people, with fresh pace, to let them know about the healthy choices, that we have, and, the evolution that's taken over with the healthier choices. I mean, people are really into it, and they're moved that, we're trying to go that route. You know?
And things like meat too. I mean, that's expensive stuff, right? So I imagine this kind of helps keep that on the shelves, because that's one of the first casualties when there's any kind of downturn or people are finding some economic hardship. They're like, I can't afford this anymore.
It is, but to be honest with you, like, I think with the small advantage that a small business or a meat market like us has, I think from what I hear and from what I know over the years, and I've been doing this for a long time, for over 35 years, like we have better prices than most of the big, box meat markets, like a Publix or something like that. So we're very competitive when it comes to the meat. And
do you have people come into your shop just for the meat then?
Just for the meat. We're really known for like our meat department.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, for the meat department, and for like for the vegetables, we cut a lot of greens, bag up a lot of greens and a lot of cabbage, So they come in for the meat, and when they see all the other stuff that we offer, especially, with fresh fruits and vegetables and like seasonings, that we have a full line of seasonings and stuff. So we're not replacing the big grocery store, but, the community gets by with what we have, and, they're appreciated, and,
Yeah. It seems like kind of a throwback, Jennifer. It's like this is what grocery stores used to be, that people would have this relationship with the greengrocer or the butcher that sort of know to ask them questions about things. Do you feel like is it good to be part of something like that?
Absolutely. And I think in particular, Mike in Rajax was our first store partner. And one of the things we really appreciated in getting to know him and his family and implementing this model with them as sort of the first is how community minded Mike is. And so that really resonated with us, that he's been in the location for a long time. He knows the local community. He's committed to the local community. And so to your point exactly, it sort of brings back this feeling of how do we really connect with the community where they are, know what their needs are, hear from people directly, and then be able to respond to that locally in a super specific and direct way.
So are you hoping that this program is going to continue indefinitely?
Absolutely. Of course. If we had, our way, we would want to have a fresh pace section in every neighborhood corner store all throughout Pinellas County. We are grateful to be situated and located in St. Pete at this time, in South St. Pete. Specifically, we are hoping to continue to expand the program. We're looking at adding a 7th store in the coming months, and so that's our goal. Growth is incremental for a program like this. There's got to be funding attached to it in order to grow, but that's our immediate vision. And yes, ideally, we continue to refine and perfect the model and continue to expand.
All right. Sounds exciting. Well, Jennifer Yagley, CEO of the St. Pete Free Clinic, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Mike Jabba, Rajax Food Meat Mart owner, thank you as well.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We'll come up next. If you've ever seen a sea urchin out in the ocean, you know to steer clear of their spines, but did you know they play a key part in keeping a coral reef healthy? We're going to meet some researchers working to keep sea urchins fighting fit so they can help our ailing reefs. That's when Florida Matters Live and Local continues. Stay with us.
Want to understand how Florida's government really works and how to make your voice count? I'm editor Amy Tardif. Your Florida offers explainers, legislative reporting, and community engagement that puts you at the center of the story. And we cover the latest in the legislative session. Visit WUSF.org/YourFlorida.
Experience the power of scale in June Kaneko, Silence Before Sound. On view now at the Tampa Museum of Art. Discover monumental Dongo sculptures and vibrant works shaped by rhythm, color, and space. For tickets, visit tampamuseum.org.
Start the new year with clarity. Your $20 monthly gift strengthens fact-based reporting right here in West Central Florida. and keeps trusted news accessible to everyone. In a year when our community needs reliable information more than ever, you can help lead the way. Begin your new year as a new member at WUSF.org, and thank you.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. Well, coming up in about 10 minutes, we know the Tampa Bay region attracts a lot of new people every day looking to put down roots here. So what makes this place attractive? Is it educational opportunities, the climate, the business environment? There are some drawbacks, though, like the cost of housing and transportation. We're going to talk about Tampa Bay's competitive advantages and disadvantages. We want to hear from you. That's a bit later in our program. But turning now to what are known as the lawnmowers of the reef, or Roombas of the ocean. Sea urchins, spiny little critters which snack on algae. Without them, the algae could smother the reef. Caribbean reefs used to be teeming with long-spined sea urchins, Diadema antillarum if you want to get technical, but back in the 80s, a mass die-off event wiped a lot of them out. Scientists from the University of Florida Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences, UF-IFAS, are working to try and bring this keystone species back. We're joined by master's student Casey Hudspeth. Casey, thank you so much for coming in.
Of course, thank you for inviting me.
And also is with us is Associate Professor Josh Patterson. He runs a lab at the Florida Aquarium's Coral Conservation and Research Center in Apollo Beach. Josh, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Matthew. That intro was great.
All right, good to know. So they've authored a new study focused on developing a diet for baby sea urchins. It's kind of like baby formula for sea urchins, if you will. All right, so let's talk about these critters, Casey. What exactly are they? What do they eat? How do they get around?
Well, I brought a little toy that I made for a bit of visual for the people who have it.
Yeah.
It's basically a small little animal that has these spines that come out of it, if you're unaware of what a sea urchin looks like. These ones that we work with particularly have these really long black spines as adults, and they eat the algae, stuff you might see growing on like the bottom of the ocean if you've ever been out there. But the ones I work with particularly are really, really small. So when they're still babies, they're like under a millimeter in size.
Yeah. There's a photograph I saw of a bucket of sea urchins from your research. And if you're a Miyazaki fan, they kind of look like those little tiny soot sprites that scurry around in Spirited Away or My Neighbor Totoro. So when do they grow those protective spines?
They pretty much have them as soon as they turn from their larval little flying form, swimming form, into that, what you saw in the bucket, these tiny little urchins. They look like adults, but much smaller with these tiny little spines coming off of them.
Okay. I actually had the unfortunate experience of treading on a sea urchin in Australia back when I was like 10 years old. Incredibly painful. Took a long time to get those spikes out. So that those spines do the job, right? They work.
Oh, yeah. This species in particular is mildly venomous, so you don't particularly want to get pricked by them. But they do an incredible job at eating that algae. They really are extremely powerful herbivores, and they do a great job at protecting the reefs from that growth.
So they're vegetarian.
They are, yeah.
And what did your research involve? What did you find?
My research involved trying out different kinds of like baby food for these very small urchins that I'm looking at, to try to see what might make them grow a bit bigger and faster and stronger as we're trying to raise them in human care to then hopefully later let out into the wild to do their job at cleaning those reefs. We'd like to do that faster. So if I could feed them something that might make them grow a bit stronger and, live a bit longer, that would be great. So that's kind of the goal, is to get like a formula that might improve their growth.
Yeah. Did you find one?
We found a couple of things that look promising that we're hoping to actually working on an experiment now to test it a little bit further. But yeah, some different algae species that we can manipulate and then give out to the urchins in controlled amounts is much better than them just eating kind of the scum that grows on the sides of the tanks.
Right. Okay. So, Josh, you're running this coral conservation and research lab out in Apollo Beach. How important is this research to what you're doing? I imagine there's a bunch of things going on out there.
Yeah, it's super important. So, I mean, I'm really just running one aspect of the Florida Aquarium's Coral Conservation and Research Center, and that's been pretty much for the last 8 years this urchin research. So we've really come a long way from not being able to produce any of these urchins at all to we're able now to produce thousands. And so research like Casey's has been a really important part of that.
So the next step would be to, once you get them to you're kind of like, it's an urchin nursery, and then you just stick them on a boat, take them out and dump them in the ocean. Is that how it works?
Yeah, absolutely. So we don't, the reefs that we're targeting, we don't actually have here in the Tampa Bay region. So we're talking about South Florida, Miami, and the Keys. So yeah, we throw them in a cooler in the back of a van and drive them down to partners in the Keys. Sometimes that's straight to a boat ramp, and we'll put them on a boat and take them out. Sometimes that's to other partners that have these like land-based aquariums where they'll hold them for a period of time. And then, they eventually all end up on a boat. And that's sort of another step in the research, is starting to understand how we can actually effectively put these things back on the reef to do the job that we hope they'll do.
Yeah. Urchins are kind of prickly characters. Casey, do you feel a little differently about them after your research? Like, have you developed more of an attachment to them?
Certainly.
Yeah.
If you'd asked me 5 years ago, if I would be studying sea urchins for my master's, I don't know if I would have said yes, but I don't regret it at all. They're fascinating creatures to work with, and I've learned a lot, not only about this animal, but just about the process of rearing invertebrates and other animals.
Yeah, and they walk too. Tell us about how they kind of get around the reef.
They actually have these feet called podia, which is sort of like a suction cup on the end of a tube, and they'll have them all over their body, and they use those to grab the ground and move around. And if you've ever seen urchins that pick up little shells and wear them like hats.
But they do that?
Not this species. Their spines are a bit too long to wear anything like a hat. But some of the other species we've worked with, they actually will grab things off of the reef, and they use those little tiny feet to pick things up. And they'll also grab food like that, if anything.
So are they acting like hermit crabs in that situation? They're just trying to use a shell as some armor or something? What are they doing?
I believe that's actually still kind of debated in circles of why exactly they do that. Some think it's camouflage, some think it's defense.
Okay.
I sometimes would give the urchins in our lab little hats.
You would? Okay.
Yeah.
Did they wear them?
They did.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Is this what's going through your mind as you're watching some of this research? You're just like, let's just see what happens here?
Well, no, we try to have a targeted question that we're addressing. And to be honest with you, when I show up at the lab every day, and this is the work that we do. And so it's, you have to really sort of reminisce and think back 8 years ago, how far we've come in 8 years. And then it's kind of a wow moment, in terms of what we've been able to develop. But on a day by day, you're just kind of showing up and addressing the next day of the experiment or whatever it might be.
Yeah, it strikes me though, they are kind of alien creatures. Like a lot of what's under the ocean, we know just a tiny fraction of. So just spending a bit of time studying one aspect of a sea urchin, you're probably learning a whole lot about not just this, but other creatures that make their homes on reefs.
Absolutely, yeah. And so my background is actually in aquaculture, and so that's what we do is we bring an organism that we're interested in into the lab. And when you try to figure out how to grow something or how it reproduces, you're absolutely right. We learn a ton about these creatures that live under the water that we don't really know a whole lot about. So it's a really cool opportunity.
Yeah, and Casey, they are, they're described as a keystone species. So there is so much pressure on reefs, right? Like in the last couple of years, there's been ocean warming, coral bleaching, there's pollution, there's overfishing. How important are the urchins to reef health in general?
The urchins are important in reducing one of these stressors that is very important, that can prevent corals from growing, reproducing, and their coral babies from growing. And so corals are facing all of this trouble, and hopefully by reintroducing these urchins out there, we can remove this one stressor that's preventing the urchins or the corals that are trying to grow back from doing so.
Do we know what caused this die-off back in the 80s, or is that still being debated?
It's never been fully understood. There's multiple scientific papers about it. It started at the Caribbean mouth of the Panama Canal and spread throughout the entire Caribbean all the way up as far as Bermuda within a year and a half, and wiped out 98% of the species. And so, it's that particular die-off is not really well understood.
But you're hoping that some of these urchins that you've managed to build up will be back out there doing the work.
Hopefully, yep, that's the plan.
We've been speaking with University of Florida Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences Associate Professor Josh Patterson and Master Student Casey Hudspeth, researching ways to improve nutrition for baby sea urchins out at Florida Aquarium's Coral Conservation and Research Center in Apollo Beach. Thank you both.
Yeah, thank you, Matthew.
Coming up, if you want education, raise a family, start a business, or build your career here, what are the good things about it? What's holding you back? Let us know and stay tuned. Florida Matters Live and Local continues.
I'm Gabriel Velasquez Neira, and I'm a WUSF Rush Family Radio News intern. My experience at WUSF has undoubtedly opened up more doors for me and has helped enhance my radio delivery. WUSF and its amazing team has allowed me to have creative freedom with my work, go out into the field, and gain experience to help me better serve the community. I appreciate you for tuning in.
Funding for WUSF comes from listeners like you, and also Badawi Law, offering legal services in personal injury, immigration, and auto accidents, with offices in Tampa, Florida. Office information and practice details at badawilaw.com, or learn more on Instagram at Badawi Law. Sarasota Ballet presents Life and Liberty, featuring Bentley's Still Life at the Penguin Cafe and Balanchine's Stars and Stripes, accompanied by the Sarasota Orchestra, March 27th through the 28th at the Van Wezel. Tickets at sarasotaballet.org.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. Well, Tampa Bay is growing. In 2023, an average of 43 people moved to Hillsborough County every single day, and Lakeland is one of the fastest growing cities in the country. Did you know that salaries are up on an average of 5% compared to just over a year ago in Tampa Bay, and yet housing is still gobbling up most of people's salaries? All this information and more is part of 2 annual reports that compare the Tampa Bay region to 19 other communities of about the same size. Since 2017, the USF Muma College of Business and the Tampa Bay Partnership have worked together on those studies. To dig a little deeper into what this data means to you and me, we're joined by Dave Blackwell, the Lynn Pippinger Dean at the Muma College of Business. Dave, thank you so much.
Thank you, Matthew.
Also with us is Sarah Burgoyne, Senior Director of Research and Public Policy for the Tampa Bay Partnership. Sarah, thank you as well.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so Dave, let me start with you. Muma produced an e-insights report. You looked at how our community compares in areas like business, education, quality of life. What was the goal of stacking Tampa Bay up against these other communities?
We want to identify opportunities to improve, to make our region more attractive for companies to relocate here, to locate here, to start here, attract the kinds of jobs that are going to raise the level of opportunity for everyone in the region.
Yeah, and so you have 3 key insights. Let's just talk about one of those, economics. Now, there's growth in employment, income, and key industries, but you also found that some of those gains aren't equally distributed. So what did you find when you looked at, say, for example, salaries in the region?
So as you mentioned, salaries are up, income is up, but a lot of those gains are being gobbled up by transportation cost and living cost. And if you look at affordable housing, for example, that's a key driver of economic inequality. Even though we have an increase in the number of jobs, an increase in income, that gap, if you will, caused by affordable housing contributes to inequality across the economic spectrum.
And that's been a conversation that's been going on for some time, right? I mean, like housing affordability has been in the news for years. So is there anything new about what you're seeing lately?
Yes, it's the increasing proportion of our population that suffer from having unaffordable housing.
And yet people keep moving here. So there's clearly things that are sort of balancing out in terms of what makes this an attractive place for people to come.
They keep moving here, but they're moving here at a slower rate than in the past. And my perception is that affordability of housing is a big factor there.
Yeah.
And the other issue is transportation. So if you look at our commuting times, even though they're still increasing slightly. On average, our population is spending an hour longer in traffic congestion than they were last time we did the report.
Yeah, that can be frustrating for commuters. I know all about that. Well, Sarah, I want to bring you into this conversation. The Tampa Bay Partnership produced the Regional Competitiveness Report. You looked at the region's performance in 7 areas, and Tampa actually improved in 3. So let's talk about some of those. Unemployment, for example, for the rate for ages 25 to 64, that actually increased a little bit. It's 3.63% now compared to 3.47% in 2025. But poverty is down. It's gone down from 11.96% to 11.09%. So we're in 16th place of those 19 places you compared, and youth poverty also falling. So that's a good thing, right? Even if unemployment is going up a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great thing that we've seen improvement in all 3 of the poverty metrics that we track. So that's total population poverty, full-time worker poverty, and youth poverty. What we're really seeing, though, is these affordability issues, and that's really squeezing what we call the missing middle. So we have an increase in the number of Alice families in Tampa Bay, and those are families that are working full-time but still struggling to make ends meet.
Yeah, and we should point out that Alice is asset limited, income constrained, employed, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Okay. So a bit of a mouthful, but it's a nice mnemonic to remember it. If you're just joining us, we're talking with Sarah Burgoyne with the Tampa Bay Partnership and Dave Blackwell with the Muma College of Business, talking about some competitiveness reports that have just come out. I want to hear from you too. What increases your quality of life and what you like about Tampa? What would make Tampa Bay better to live? Is it the quality of housing? Is it transportation, the ease of getting around? Education, perhaps? Give us a call, 813-755-6562. You can also email FloridaMatters@wusf.org. Now, Dave pointed this out too, like growth has slowed down a little bit. 2.2% 2025, 2.09% this year, so it's just kind of gone down a little bit. Do you have a notion of what's turning people off Tampa Bay?
I don't think people are turned off of Tampa Bay specifically. I think just across the nation, we're seeing that migration has slowed. And there are also some influences in terms of international migration. Mm-hmm. So people leaving the country and a slowed influx into the region from other countries.
Do you feel like what can you do in terms of moving the needle one way or the other way? You want to move it in one direction, of course. You want to make it better, but what can you do? Or are you just sort of observing and saying, look, here's what the data tells us. It's up to businesses and governments and government leaders to make an improvement?
Sure. This is definitely a scorecard, and we work, the partnership and USF work to bring together public-private partnerships to help move the needle on various indicators.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so tell me about some of those public-private partnerships, Dave. Like what sort of thing, what areas could we make a difference in terms of making things better for people living here?
I think regional cooperation on the transportation infrastructure is essential. Better access to healthcare, more broadly, is essential. More activity in building affordable housing and making it accessible to the workplace. And then we need actually a growth in the number of bachelor's degrees as a percentage of the population, especially STEM degrees. And what our data showed was especially degrees in finance, insurance, and real estate. Mm-hmm. Those tend to be higher paying jobs. And we've attracted a lot of high income people in the last year compared to the year before. But and that helps our tax base for sure. But as a percentage of the overall population, we're just essentially holding our own against the other regions. So earlier you were asking Sarah about migration patterns, and I think part of it is we're still competitive in Florida and in our region, but Texas is getting even more competitive in a sense. And
what are they doing differently then?
They have land. and so, some of the industries, think of a data center, for example. A large data center needs a lot of land. It needs access to power. And in rural parts of Texas, that's maybe a little bit easier to access. So I think that's part of it. Or if you think about a large manufacturing facility, we've got limited space in the Tampa Bay region for that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. You're just joining us. We're talking with Dave Blackwell. He's with the Mooma College of Business at USF, and Sarah Burgoyne with the Tampa Bay Partnership, talking about regional competitiveness, what makes Tampa Bay a good place to move and set up a business or improve your quality of life here. I want to hear from you too. What do you like about living in the Tampa Bay region? What would make this better? Maybe it's a little bit of frustration out on the roads. Maybe is it access to healthcare? As Dave was saying, education. Let us know. 813-755-6562 is the number, or you can email FloridaMatters@wusf.org. So let me ask about artificial intelligence. I mean, so this is one area where Tampa Bay is kind of ahead of the curve a little bit. Sarah, incorporating artificial intelligence into businesses. This is, we're third out of 19 regions. That's kind of it's a little bit of an unknown though, right? Because there are a lot of questions about how AI is going to change the job market. So how are businesses using artificial intelligence in Tampa Bay, and what are some of the potential things to be worried about as they move forward with this?
Sure, that's a great question. Businesses are adapting AI at different rates. We're seeing that it's really important for employees to be able to reskill and upskill to stay in our labor market and support our businesses in the region. Mm-hmm. I think, Dave, you might be able to add a little bit more on the AI topic.
Yeah, I mean, we and I talk to a lot of business leaders around the region. As Sarah said, there's different rates of adoption, but overall, our rate of adoption is quite excellent compared compared to other regions. We view that as a big advantage that we need to double down on. What that means is we need to upskill the workforce to enable them to learn how not just to be literate in AI, but to be fluent and how to interpret what they're getting from AI and being able to apply it strategically in a business context.
Is it possible, though, to even be fluent in something when it's changing pretty much daily? Like, how do you even stay ahead of the curve when the technology is advancing so rapidly?
It's extremely challenging, and our faculty at USF, both in the Bellini College of Artificial Intelligence, Cybersecurity, and Computing, and in the School of Information Systems in the MUMA College, we have faculty members that are keeping us at the cutting edge, and we're trying to find ways to get that knowledge out into the community.
Mm-hmm. So are you seeing some connections there that like businesses can hop on to help make things better in terms of that AI sort of adoption?
Absolutely. So we think that on-the-job training is really important. Businesses reinvesting in the current workforce to keep them in their organizations and within the greater Tampa Bay area.
Mm-hmm. So Matthew, and to add something to what Sarah said, and this is ironic that you've asked the question, but literally tomorrow morning, the MUMA College Center for Executive and Leadership Education is hosting an executive conversation about AI strategy. Mm-hmm. And so we've attracted about 20 leaders from around the community, along with the distinguished scholar of innovation and strategy and another one of our faculty members, to have that conversation about, okay, AI is moving rapidly. How do we stay at least with the curve, if not ahead of the curve?
Yeah, and it comes back to what you were saying about the need to have more bachelor's degrees, and you listed a couple of sort of, I guess, quote-unquote white-collar jobs, but there must be some concern that AI may just kind of eat those jobs up completely in a few years.
Certainly, that's a fear that we hear expressed, and certainly it's up to higher education institutions to help graduates at least learn how to adapt quickly, certainly to be fluent when they graduate and go into their first job. Because those first jobs are the ones that are going to be most vulnerable to AI. But then you also have to learn how to adapt quickly. Mm-hmm. And that involves, a high degree of critical thinking skills and analytical skills to handle that. And so we're focused on gearing our curriculum in that direction.
Mm-hmm. I want to just come back to growth for a moment, if I could. Sarah, and the idea of net migration, that's sort of dropped a little bit, especially with younger folks, like the age 25 to 34. Dropped from 10% to 8.4%, so almost a couple of percentage points shaved off, migration from folks in that age range. What do you think it is that's making younger people think twice about Florida, or Tampa Bay, I should say?
I think a big reason that people are thinking twice is affordability, especially around housing and transportation. Younger people, those entry-level workers, they're struggling to find housing within their income range. And so actually at our event last week, we were able to highlight a story about a public-private partnership addressing just that. So down in Manatee County, the county partnered with the Bradenton EDC and One Stop Housing and a couple local employers to build Forest Cove, which is affordable workforce housing. So each of the employers will have a chunk of units in that building, and they'll be able to guarantee some of their employees affordable housing that is no more than 30% of their monthly income.
Right. That's the target, right? Like 30%. If you go over that, then you're going to be struggling and sort of making adjustments and sacrifices elsewhere.
It is. That's the target, and we're a lot closer to 40%. On average.
It's going to be interesting to see how that Forest Cove complex pans out and what that means. Maybe other businesses in other parts of Tampa Bay will adopt something similar as well. We're going to have to leave the conversation there, but Sarah Burgoyne, Senior Director of Research and Public Policy for the Tampa Bay Partnership, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And also, we've been speaking with David Blackwell, the Lynn Pippinger Dean at the MUMA College of Business at USF. David, thank you as well.
Thank you, Matthew. Nice to meet you.
Likewise. And coming up, you're going to hear from a group of men who turned an unfortunate life circumstance into a life-changing opportunity. That's when Florida Matters Live and Local continues. Stay with us.
I'm Indira Lakshmanan. It's been 4 years since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine.
Explosions erupted across Ukraine. Russia launched missiles and airstrikes against military, civilian infrastructure, and peaceful Ukrainian cities.
We'll have the latest from Kyiv on the fighting and the negotiations. That's next time on Here and Now.
Join us this afternoon from 1 to 3 on WUSF 89.7.
Sarasota Opera presents its 2026 Winter Opera Festival, featuring Puccini's La Boheme, Floyd's Susanna, and more. These performances run now through March 29th. Tickets are at sarasotaopera.org.
When you listen to WUSF, you get tours of local businesses that are often a labor of love, like a cafe in Brandon that helps find homes for kittens.
We're interested in getting another one because if you have one cat, you have to have 3.
Animal adoption groups are an important part of your community. Thanks for listening to WUSF 89.7, your spot for local.
This is WUSF 89.7, your 24/7 source for local news and credible information, powered by listeners like you.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. Well, for people who've done some time in prison, it can be pretty hard to get jobs or housing after getting out. But in St. Petersburg, a group of men and women who've spent time behind bars have returned to their community and they're giving back. Felons Ain't Failures started as a podcast exploring fatherhood, black mental health, redefining success, and re-entering society.
You don't have to give them the bat to now suspend your license. You can't travel internationally. Yeah. They garnish your wages. They garnish your, settlements. They garnish your income tax. You're like, beat me with the bat.
Well, now the organization has grown into an organization that is trying to prevent young people from committing crime in the first place. And we are joined in the studio by Felons Ain't Failures founder and president, Coach Chuck Price. Charles, thank you so much.
Hey, thank you, Matthew, for having me.
So I want to hear from you too. If you're a person who's done time in prison, maybe you're looking for ways to give back, or maybe you've got ideas for ways people with criminal records can give back to their community. Join the conversation by calling 813-755-6562 or emailing FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Well, Chuck, how did Felons Ain't Failures get started?
Well, it began when I was in prison. It was my mantra. So every day I would tell myself, I'm a felon and not a failure. I'm a felon and not a failure. So I kind of carried that throughout my sentence. And so when I got out, I wanted to start a podcast to create a community. And I wanted to use my lived experience, the great things that I accomplished after prison, even the paradigm shift that had to take place while I was in prison to put me in a position to be able to create a plan, to execute and be successful when I get out. So it's based on lived experience and storytelling.
And when did you start the podcast?
This is my second year with the podcast. So
wow.
I started the podcast 2 years ago. Yes, sir. But it was a strategic phase. It's phase one of a bigger program of Felons Ain't Failures. So like I said, I started the podcast to create a community. From there, my goal was to launch a broadcasting network for others to start a podcast. But I created a community when I got ready to launch my nonprofit, as you talked about with my youth program that's launching. I felt it important to have a community base that would be able to support, that would be able to share, help market, and would stand in agreement with what I was doing. So the podcast was the beginning, because storytelling is a big part of everything that we do. Culturally speaking, it was to advise. It was how we educated. It was how we warned. It was how we redirected. It was how we shifted and inspired. So I began, let that be the foundation and the base of everything that we do. So even in our youth program, we have a Young Influencers podcast program in that, as well as we deal with emotional intelligence. We deal with positive behavior pathways. We also have them to produce their own podcast. And in the podcast, they talk about the very things that they learn. So it gives them a voice, it establishes them as influencers, and allows them to inspire those other young kids that may check out the podcast.
What were you listening to in prison, if I could ask? Were you listening to podcasts or were you listening to other stuff?
No. I was just listening to my head.
Yeah. So you were kind of like working on this idea for a while.
Well, not really the podcast. I was working on just kind of positioning myself to be successful, just talking myself out of what society and my environment told me who I was. And so I spent time just reaffirming myself with who I really am. So I had to take time out to search that out, So I searched deep the things that were near to my heart, the things that I was passionate about, and that was about helping people. That was about fostering other people into a great life. And so I built myself on that when I came home. So everything I do now is nothing for me. It's always about motivating, inspiring, and fostering someone else's success and growth.
Was it like a light bulb moment for you? Because I'm just sort of thinking about, your life story. It's pretty profound, sort of where you are now compared to what's led up to here. Like, you were first arrested at 12.
Yes,
so,
sir.
That's like, how did you come to where you are now?
Oh, man, it's really just the grace and the plan of God for my life. Everything about my life, everything that I'm doing is based on my lived experience. I got arrested at 12. The age I start for my youth program is 12. So everything that I've been through led up to where I am now. So I use the actual experiences of my life to build everything going forward. Mm-hmm. It's authentic, it's real, it's not fake, and it's been productive and successful.
And what does it feel like to have a chance to prevent, what happened to you at the age of 12 to happening to somebody else at that age?
It feels great. It's a mass responsibility. But we are, when you think of cartoons, how they had the one devil and the other angel.
Yeah, right.
So we're that other voice, because in my community, a lot of kids, they have the voice of the environment, the voice of the media. So we're that other voice that speaks in contrary to what this voice has been telling them and what they believe that they're seeing. Mm-hmm. So it's a great responsibility, but I love it. Every time a kid comes up, hey, Coach Chuck, hey, glad to see you, man. I enjoyed this, I enjoyed that. Tell me about your podcast. It lets me know that I am impacting, that I am sowing seeds, and there will be change in my community if we just keep going.
If you're just joining us on Florida Matters Live and Local, we're talking with Coach Chuck Price. He's the founder of Felons Ain't Failures. It's a podcast and a nonprofit. He's talking about how he's giving back after serving time. And maybe if you're wondering about how to give back after serving time, or you're curious about what it takes to turn your life around after that circumstance, you can join the conversation by calling 813-755-6562 or emailing floridamatters@wusf.org. So who's the audience for the podcast? Like, who's tuning in?
Well, it began first going after felons.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, with felons, we gained the support from those who support the felons. That was important to me, bringing my brother on. My brother never did any time, but he supported me throughout all my time. So we felt like that was the family and the community that we need to build, because it would take those who are felons and it would take those who really support felons and a second chance in life. And so we have that mixed audience tuning in.
Yeah. Are you reaching people who are serving time now?
I don't really know, because there are so many, like, different institutions have different ways that they can access media.
Yeah.
So I don't know how many come in on YouTube. We've had a couple people comment,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't say exactly how far our reach has been. But we definitely have got some comments from people who've been in prison watching our shows.
Mm-hmm. So tell me more about the Young Influencer Felony Prevention Program. I believe that starts on Wednesday, right?
Yes, sir, March 4th. We're doing it every Wednesday. It's a 10-month program. And the reason I did a 10-month program, because I wanted to really spend some time with my facilitators, being able to really infuse the mind of our young kids. So it's every Wednesday at Thomas Jet Center, which is Old Wildwood Recreation Center. From 6:30 to 8, we feed them from 6:30 to 7. They have class from 7 to 8. We have Love and Empathy, a youth therapy services that does the mental health and all of that. Mm-hmm. We have a bunch of different other people coming. We got professional readiness. But the whole thing was I went for ages 12 to 20, because 12 is where a lot of kids start to be influenced and follow the wrong path. And I wanted 18, 19, and 20 years old, so once they go through the program, they can turn around and be peer counselors the next year around. So they go through the program next year, they're peer counseling, and they can operate and help encourage the kids and help, get the kids in line and everything. So it's really about just creating a paradigm shift, just letting them know what you see is not what it is.
Is it something that you wished you'd had access to maybe when you were at that age?
Oh,
like
yes,
12
yes.
and 20?
Yes, definitely. Even if you think about the professional readiness that we do, if I had someone come to my school and do a panel and there was a fireman, there was an RN, there was a lawyer, if I had that person talk to me and I can question them, there's a possibility I may have been one of those. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's definitely important. When I was younger, I had great parents. I didn't supposed to go in the streets. I wasn't supposed to be a drug dealer. At 15, I caught an armed robbery. I robbed the subway. I shouldn't have been doing that.
How did that happen?
It's the influence of the environment, and that's what I'm saying. A lot of times we grow up with the devil speaking. We don't have that voice that's countering that, and so just the influence of the environment, because
But you were saying your parents were like a good influence.
They were great, but as I go outside, my parents work You know, I know you heard people talk about the Alice. So, you know, like people who work full time, but they still struggle. So my parents' focus was working, making sure we had food to eat, lights on. So in the midst, I'm outside, I'm being influenced by what seems to be attractive, what seems to be easier. And in our neighborhoods, money is king, money is law. So, and you learn that people get money by selling drugs, they get money by robbing things. And the quickest way to make money is to rob something and get away with it. So I felt like I could rob a store and get away with it.
Wow. When you were in prison, I mean, like, I'm just sort of wondering about the thought process. Like, could you have pictured yourself doing what you're doing now? Like, how long did it take you to change your mindset and think, this is not the path for me. I've got to do something different.
Oh man, my first day in prison, my mind changed. I knew, like, even going from the county jail, doing so much time in the county, going to prison, I realized, like, see, even in the county, you're in your county, you still feel home. But when they ship you off into these trees and these woods, and it was just like when I first got there, like I knew like I never wanted to be here again. But I'm also like I'm a different breed of man. So it wasn't hard for me to transition myself mentally and hard for me to see what I would be doing afterward, because I knew that I was going to fight hard to prevent people from coming here, especially kids and older men that come here, fight hard to prevent them from coming back. Because we also have a recidivism program. We have a 12-week program called The Next Me is the Best Me, and we're getting ready to go into the prison, start teaching that for the release dorms. I go to Mayo Correction on March 18th to do a presentation on that. So as well as the kids we deal with, we're trying to break the cycle of recidivism. And like I say, I'm just a different kind of animal, you know, with an assignment on my life. So I knew when I got in there, I already started preparing what I was going to do when I come home to keep others from going through the cycle I had just went in.
So you've got your podcast, you've got the youth podcast. What other programs do you have?
I actually have a Fellas Ain't Failure podcast that's turned into a broadcast network. So I have Closer to the Heart podcast. We're producing 4 new podcasts starting in April. Closer to the Heart, that's young ladies, where they speak to the hearts of young ladies. I have the People's Podcast, where Big Bro Los Carlos Price, he speaks to the community as a general of restoring the village. I have Felon X podcast, where Keezy, she's done time in prison for trafficking drugs, so she interviews felons about life before, during, and after prison. And then I have Clash with 1A, that's our young guys. They're into anime, more entertainment, so we're pushing all that out in April.
So and my podcast mogul now.
Yeah, we're on our way. We're on our way. I definitely see that we're on our way, because it's bigger than me. It's about putting people in a position and creating a platform where they can operate in their purpose. Because our tagline is purpose never dies. No matter what you've been through, no matter where you are in life, what you have and what you don't have, purpose never dies. There's a it over your life, and it will continue to call you as long as you're alive.
We're going to have to leave the conversation there, but I want to thank you for stopping by, Coach Chuck Price.
Thank you,
talking
man.
about Felons Ain't Failures. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Matthew.
Well, that is our show for today. Next time on Florida Matters Live and Local, here from University of South Florida's new president, I'm going to sit down with Moaz Lamayam and talk about the opportunities for this university and the challenges from politics to economics. If you've got questions, you can email floridamatters@wusf.org and tune in. It's Wednesday at noon. Our executive producer is Grayson Doctor. Our producers are Armely Horace and Quincy Walters. Our engineers are Jackson Harp and Geo Garvin, and Jackson composes our theme music. Chandler Balcom handled the video today. You can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and watch on WUSF's YouTube channel. I'm Matthew Petty. Thanks so much for listening and watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.